Good evening, this is Robert Sidell. I welcome you to the Gateway Show on every Sunday night on the number one talk station here in Las Vegas, uh, broadcasting live. And then we're also, this is from 6 to 7 p.m. live. We're also simulcasting on Facebook. And also later on, probably within about 30 minutes after the end of the show is over, this show will be available on YouTube as well. So if you want to hear the show and just listen to it completely unrelated to anything else, you'll be able to go directly to YouTube and hear the whole thing. So I'm excited tonight. This is gonna be fun. I, I see Ron Futrell, and I'm pronouncing that right? Ron Futrell.
Yes.
Okay,
No, come on.
I want to make sure. And he's broadcasting from the moon tonight.
It is. It's if you see Robert, if you see the aliens behind me, let me know. I'm calling George Knapp. Make sure we get good video of them, and we will. Yeah, we'll send him. We'll get George Knapp on this right away.
I
He'll
like
figure it
this. You know what? You now I know why you've been able to be on the air so many years. Is because you got a good sense of humor.
out. I hope so.
At least we hope it's a good
Okay.
sense of humor, right? But
Yeah.
tell me just for a minute, how long have you been on the air? I know you've been on for many, many years. Like it's got to be 25 or 30 years, right?
Yeah. It's actually 40. How about that? Let's go.
Wow.
Time flies when you're having fun, huh? I got here in '84, and so yep, that would be now. It's going on 41 years here in Las Vegas. It's been a fun run. I've enjoyed it. It's been. I've seen the town grow up like you. I've seen the town grow up from a small little. I don't want to call it a little dusty desert town. It wasn't that when I got here, but '84 we had about 300,000 or 400,000 people. It was a small TV market as they rank TV markets by the people that live in the population of the area that they're broadcasting to. We were 107 when I got here, and we're now up to 35 or so to give you some idea. I mean, New York would be one, LA number two. You get the idea, and so
Uh-huh.
they rank them that way. But so I've seen this town grow up. I feel like I've sort of grown up with this city.
So we're
So
so we're like 35 in the national markets.
yes,
Huh.
in
That's interesting.
TV. Radio's probably similar, I would imagine. It varies a little bit because broadcast signals are different than TV signals. But yeah, that's right around there. It changes. It changes often, but we're moving up. I mean, obviously, because more people are moving here than are moving out.
You know what's interesting is that I showed up about almost the same time you did. I showed up in 1984. Is that when you said you came?
Yeah, 84.
Huh.
So you know what the city was like then? Yes.
I do. It's funny. One of on this spiritual journey I'm on in life, part of it is it's very easy to fantasize about different parts of life, isn't it? That some one time or another there were things about it that you might have liked it a certain way or
Sure.
one but at the same time I think there's always new possibilities. But I have to say, I did enjoy it when I first showed up in town. There were still a lot of kind of what I call Western characters. People that were really still a little bit almost like characters out of a movie or something. And I'm sure I'm sure you crossed your paths with some people like that.
Mobsters.
Well,
Okay. Oh no, oh no. I remember going to the Las Vegas Country Club and meeting Tony the Ant Spilatro there. 2 years later, he was dead. He and his brother were cut to pieces and deposited in an Indiana cornfield by mobsters who must have thought they were skimming. But anyway, if you've seen the movie Casino, you know Joe Pesci in the role that he played, that Tony the Ant Spilatro left. Oh, I remember 84. The Summer Olympics were in LA,
hmm,
and the
I
swim
remember
team
that.
took home a bunch of medals. The Russians didn't participate in those Olympics because of the boycott from 1980 that Jimmy Carter did. And then, so the 80 and 84 Olympics were skewed a little bit, maybe a lot. Anyway, there was a big swimming event. A casino guy by the name of Dick Carson, who I've lost touch with over the years. Dick Carson held an event at Caesars where he was honoring these Olympians right after they won the gold medals. He brought them all here to Las Vegas, and he had a lot of money, so he could do it. And he had Frank Rosenthal, Lefty Rosenthal, was one of the speakers, and I'm emceeing it. Okay, so I asked Dick, I remember, like, how do I introduce Lefty Rosenthal to this group? And he says, "Oh no," he says, "Do not call him Lefty." Um, I said, "Well," I said, "I'm left-handed." So I'm a former, I'm a southpaw myself, fellow southpaw. So can I, I'm a lefty. So he says, Ron, and then he looked at me serious. He said, only his very close friends call him that. Nobody else. If you do, you could be in some trouble. I said, I will call him Mr. Rosenthal, sir. I do not want to get in trouble with a mobster my first year in Las Vegas and end up in an Indiana cornfield. Um, so, so there you go. So no, those were some of the characters, but it was endearing. It was sort of, I get the negative, the bad side, and all of that. I understand it. It's not lost on me. But these Western characters, we're battle born. We're still the Wild West in so many ways. And certainly back then, 40 years ago, it was like that. It was, you had Ralph Lamb and the sheriff and you know,
So I don't know if I
and,
told you this or not, but I had a little speaking part in that movie, Casino. And
oh, did you?
yeah,
Okay.
it was a funny story because I
I've
had
got to watch it
spoken.
again now. Okay.
Yeah, I had spoken somewhere in front of a group, and somebody liked my speech, and then so a couple of months later, I get a call at my office. My secretary says, "Hey, somebody wants you to be in a movie." Well, usually most people calling for something like that, it seems like a phony thing. And so I thought, well, I'll get on the phone and listen to what they have to say. And they said, well, we're filming this movie, Casino, and we heard you speak, and we would like you to have a part of the movie. And believe it or not, a speaking part, which is in the world of movies, that's a hard thing to get, actually. It's one thing to be an
Oh, no,
extra.
I would imagine.
It's a whole
Yeah.
different thing if you have a speaking part. Although I have to tell you something, it's really funny though when you hear it my speaking part because it got reduced to as small as it could be reduced to without losing my speaking part. But so I got a chance to. Had a scene with Robert De Niro. Actually, it was really fun because there was all these people: Sharon Stone, Robert De Niro, uh, all these different people were there in this one particular scene that was supposed to be taking place in front of the gaming control board, and and De Niro was playing Lefty Rosenthal, right? I think that's
Right.
the character he was playing, and so that was definitely a fun experience for me. I was in there for a couple of days. Oh, and here's the funniest part, Ron. So my role in that movie was supposed to be Quincy. That was supposed to be my name. So Robert De Niro says to Frank Scorsese, "Do you care if I call him Bob instead, which is my real name?" And so he said, "No, no, it's okay." So in the movie, there were a couple of scenes where he's calling me out, Bob, Bob, where are you going? And this kind of stuff. So, and the funny part is, if you look it up online in the computer, the IMDb or whatever that database is, if you look up my name, Robert Sidell, it says I'm playing myself in the movie.
Oh,
So,
Bob.
yeah, isn't that funny? It
That's
says
good.
Robert. No, it says Robert Sidell playing Robert Sidell.
Okay.
It's just funny. How that exactly all came together, I'm not really sure, but and I still get very tiny. I don't want to exaggerate this, but very tiny checks after all this time. It's just funny after all these years. So I guess that's what actors, if they happen to do well on something, they can live forever on it, right?
Yes. Mailbox money. But
Yeah.
we don't know much about the mailbox anymore. It typically doesn't come there. It just goes straight in. But mailbox money. Yeah.
And what was funny is because he kept calling me Bob, so then pretty soon people came up to me, "Hey Bob, how you doing?" And they said, "Are you one of the Shakespearean actors?" And suddenly I got this reputation there. It was just a funny thing, but guess what? I've never played any other movie. Now Oscar Goodman and I sort of became friends because of that, because he had a big role in the movie, as you
He
probably
did.
know. And
Yes.
and Oscar, Oscar, I like Oscar. I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to hear a few of your thoughts about him, but he did so much good for our town. He really, really did. When he played as a mayor, when he played mayor, when he when he
When he was mayor.
he was playing mayor. It's funny. What's funny about him is that he did play it. It was fun for him. Wherever he went, he had these two showgirls with him all the time, right? And it was just for him. It was just like a fun thing to do, and he was bringing publicity to the city, and so I think he did a really good job.
No, I enjoyed that time as mayor for him. For it was fun to see him there, to see him enjoying it. There's listen, there's not much you could do wrong as a mayor. I don't think. I mean, he didn't. He presided over a great time in Las Vegas where it grew, and then of course his wife followed him. So you had Goodman's back to back for a
Yeah,
long run right there. So
yeah. I
it
don't
was
know. I I
couple of
think
decades.
yeah, I think they did a good job. I really do. And it was like I said, for me it was fun to meet him, and he's still doing his thing. He's like 85 now, I think, or something like that. I don't know. He's getting up there, but
Yeah, he's a treasure. He's a Vegas treasure. Certainly a mob, the attorney to the mob, and did a good job for them, and took that and parlayed that into a great life.
yeah, no, he's an interesting person parlaying. That's a good point. Maybe Ron. That's what we do in this life. We parlay our opportunities. I like that. That's a parlay. That's a sporting term, right? Isn't that a
It is. It's called Bill when you have multiple bets and you got to win them all to be able to win. But you keep adding to it, and you improve upon it.
well, I honestly think that's well. And so I showed up in Vegas when I showed up here in '84. I literally didn't know one person here, and I worked for as a law clerk for about 8 or 9 months for the Clark County District Attorney, and then they had to lay off a bunch of employees, and so I just started my own law practice. So I've been in my own private law practice ever since that, since like 1984, 1985, and been able to build up a family and everything. Do you have family here too?
Yeah. Oh yes. Got four kids. I had two little boys when we moved here, and our other two were born here in Las Vegas. So now I've got nine grandkids that live in the state of Nevada. Three up in Reno and six here in Las Vegas. So and three of my kids are here in Las Vegas. I have a son up in Reno. So no, it's been great. It's been a fun run, and I loved having a job where you can stay home for the most part. There were a few road trips. It's March and March Madness, college basketball, all through the glory days of UNLV basketball. That month was a busy month where you're on the road quite often
So that's
for
March Madness
covering Rebel.
is on right now, right?
Yes, yes,
One of
covering
my one of
UNLV
my
basketball.
friends, that's the high point of his year every year. So tell
Oh,
me, how's that going this year?
oh, it's going well. I mean, UNLV is not there. UNLV is not a factor in March Madness anymore. That's haven't been for 35 years. Um, So that makes it certainly different for locals here, but it's still going well. It's fun tournament. It's always exciting. Not many upsets this year. It's pretty stable in that area. In that most of the favorites are winning. So we'll see if that continues.
Hold on, we're gonna have to go to a break right now, but you and I can keep talking on Facebook. My friends, I'm talking to Ron Futrell, very interesting broadcaster here. Has a lot of stories here in town. Had Tony the Ant, which is a funny Tony Spilaccio. That was what he was called, Tony the Ant. But we'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned with us, and Ron and you and I can keep talking over the break. So Robert Sidell, my friends on the radio, will be back in 2 to 3 minutes. Stick with us. You know, it's I'll tell you one. It's funny. I had a kind of a funny interaction with him too, with Tony the Ant. Actually, not as much as you, but I was walking into the courthouse one day, and I walked in a back route on an alley, and as I did, suddenly this van drove up with bars over the windows, and so suddenly, next thing I know, the door opens up, and Tony the Ant gets out, and or
Oh,
Tony Spilotro gets out. So at that point, he was still, I don't even know exactly what stage of things were going on with him. But that was my one interaction with him. I was probably within just a few feet of him as I was walking one direction. He comes in, climbs out of a van, and goes into a back door of the courthouse.
so yeah, you don't want to have too many interactions with him. You're fortunate to you don't you don't want to yes because it could go south
Yeah, that's no.
if you know too much.
I'm with you on that. That was just enough of an interaction with him. That was plenty.
Yeah.
And then I think it was probably 6 months or maybe a year later that I got that chance to be in that movie, which was fun. And I bet you knew some people in that movie.
Well, Harry Reid was in it too, wasn't he?
He probably was. He
Yeah, I
probably
think he
was.
was. He was a played the tough, hard nosed state regulator with a gaming control board who was trying to shut him down. And part of that movie was filmed at Channel 8 in our Howard Hughes. His house is in our back lot
Oh,
that
is
he
that right?
lived in the 60s.
Really?
Didn't live in it very long,
Huh.
but it's in the back lot of Channel 8. They're in the process of moving it. Now they haven't started the process, but they're finding the funding to be able to move it to put it at a location somewhere here in Las Vegas where people can visit it, see it, instead of it being locked up behind a gated wall at Channel 8.
That's kind of a weird story. So the actual house he lived in is on Channel 8 property now?
Yeah. He used to own Channel 8.
Huh. Interesting.
I got some stories about that if you want to hear those when we come back.
Yeah, I would like to hear that because
Okay.
I remember once I had a chance to meet, who was it? Bob Mayhew, and who was one of
Oh,
those
yeah.
right hand men, right?
Right. Yes.
I remember him talking about, people asked him, well, did you ever meet, did you ever get a chance to talk and meet to Howard Hughes? And I remember his answer, but I'm kind of curious if you ever heard any reasons or stories about that kind of stuff. But
No, I knew people who knew him. That's all.
uh-huh.
Like you.
uh,
And
that's the fun part about having lived in Vegas these last 40 years for us. Is in some ways our lives have almost been like a role in a movie. Wouldn't you say? I mean, I bet you've met a lot
oh
of
no,
interesting
it's
people.
been yes. I would agree. It's been almost unbelievable. I've got when we come back too. If you want to, I've got a pretty good George Foreman story.
Okay, I think we're about to.
Tell if
Hold
you
on one
want.
second here. I think are we back? Are we back on, Owen? I didn't hear the intro. I think we're back on the air here. So, in any event, my
Okay.
friends, this is Robert Sidell, and this is the Gateway Show, and I'm interviewing Ron Futrell, who's got a lot of wonder. We both are just reminiscing over the fact that the last 30 or 40 years in Vegas were an amazing time. You know, there's been a lot of amazing stuff that's happened here, and a lot of characters have been here. Now, mind you, there's probably going to be a lot more characters. I think there's some more characters showing up in the town right now, even. It's going to lead to whole new possibilities. But so tell me about George Foreman. You were saying you met George Foreman?
Yeah, George Foreman actually, and as a sports reporter, I interviewed him many times here in Las Vegas in the '90s when he had his comeback here in town. But prior to that, before I even moved to Las Vegas, I'm living in Southern California. It's 1977, October of '77. I remember it well, just because it was I had just returned. I lived in Ireland for 2 years, and I'd just gotten back within 2 weeks from Ireland. I want to go to the beach. It's late at night. I'm with a gal, a friend of mine, and we decide to go to Santa Monica Beach at midnight just to kick back, hear the waves crash. So we're all by ourselves on the beach, but in the water, there's a small group, handful of people all dressed in white and performing baptisms. So I thought, well,
Really? Wow.
this is sort of interesting. Okay. I knew what they were doing. It was clear what they were doing. And we were the only people on the beach and we're very close to each other. They got done. And George Foreman came walking up to me. And again, this is 1977, before I ever started covering sports. And he came up to me and reached out his hand and shook my hand, and a big giant paw. I'll never forget it. Big hands. And I said, he said, "Hi, I'm the Reverend George Foreman. Nice to meet you." I said, "My name's Ron. Nice to meet you." We chatted for about a half an hour on the beach there about the baptisms he was performing, about religion, about his boxing career. And he had told me about, and I knew who he was. I clearly knew, I was very interested in sports my whole life. So I knew who he was, and we talked about the Ali fights and just the rumble in the jungle and all, and what converted him to Christianity. How losing a fight in the locker room, he's bleeding, and he felt he had a calling to then become a reverend, which he did throughout the rest of his life. But then he decides to have a comeback in the early '90s. He decides to come back and fight for the heavyweight championship. So at 45 years old, almost 46. He's getting ready for a fight at here in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand against Michael Moore. Prior to that fight, I'd interviewed him and chatted with him, and I said, "You probably don't remember this experience, but I'm going to tell you about it." And so I told him about that experience that we had back in 1977, and he looked at me. He said, "Oh yeah, I remember that. Did you marry the gal you were with?" I said, "No, I didn't." But his recall was fascinating to me that he was able to, that he did. Now it might have been with the baptisms and the midnight thing. It stood out to him certainly, and we were the only ones there. And I said, no, I did not marry her. But he did remember that encounter that we had there so many, 2 decades later almost. And so anyway, so he goes fights Michael Moore. He's losing badly. It's at the MGM Grand, and Michael Moore's 25 years old, and Foreman's almost 46. Like I said, losing badly. So we figured his comeback was over. 10th round, he throws a combination, a quick left, and then a very hard straight right that knocks him down. And George Foreman becomes the heavyweight champion of the world for a second time.
That's
and
amazing.
and did it at the oldest ever to win the heavyweight championship, 45 years and 9 months old, to become the heavyweight champion of the world was a remarkable thing for somebody of his age to do that. And the way he did it was great. I remember the fight very well just because it was so remarkable. And we lost George Foreman this past week. So they have
Really,
not
he just passed away this week?
he passed away this week. They have not given the cause of death. 76 years old. But what a remarkable story, a legendary story of George Foreman. He's got, I think, 11 kids. They're all named George or Georgina. Um, and then as an entrepreneur, I mean, everybody knows the Foreman Grills, but there's so much more than that. And the empire that he built as an entrepreneur. I think you see Shaquille O'Neal today doing the same thing, sort of following in his footsteps, becoming close to a billionaire, I think, by now. Shaq, with all the companies that he's bought and sold and represented and been a part of and put his name onto. But that was George Foreman did that throughout his career and did it very successfully. Clothing, you got George Foreman clothing. You got, like I said, the George Foreman grill, all sorts of things. So it was a shame to lose the Reverend George Foreman, Big George, this past week.
You know, it's funny. I remember watching that movie, Rumble in the Jungle. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was the subtitle, but whatever. The story of their whole fight over there in the Congo. Or Zimbabwe or whatever. Not wasn't Zimbabwe.
Zaire.
No, Zaire, right.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from watching that, and so you met him at the time when he was being baptized or baptizing. Was that after that experience in
Oh no, that
Africa?
was 77. That was way before. It was way prior, 1977, when I first met him. When I wasn't Ron, the sports guy in Vegas, I was just a kid hanging out on the beach with a friend.
So how old was he when he did that fight in Zaire?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean,
I can do the math on it.
But you do think it was after that time, though?
No, the fight in Zaire was prior to that.
Oh, it was prior. Oh, okay, that's what I wanted.
It was prior. Oh no, it was prior to that. It was early 70s. I'm going to guess.
That makes sense to me.
The Ali Frazier fights were early 70s for George Foreman, and that's when. And again, another loss led him to retire from boxing, to become a reverend and have a church in Houston. Very successful with that. And then he always kept his reverend title, and he always smiled when I would call him reverend, because I saw him perform baptisms in Santa Monica Beach.
That's pretty amazing, really. That's a very, and it was totally unplanned, right? You just happened to show up.
Well, no, I was on the beach at midnight with a friend. Yeah, just hanging out.
That's pretty hard to believe, really. Huh?
Yeah, no, it was a great experience, and I remember the timing. I remember timing on it very well because of I had just gotten home from spending 2 years in Ireland on a Mormon mission there at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Ireland during the Troubles, which was a crazy experience too. Not many young guys were over there at that time. Wow,
that's amazing. So you did a mission with the LDS Church over in Ireland?
Yes, from 75 to 77.
Wow, that's that probably was kind of scary in a way.
Well, it wasn't to me. I liked it. It seemed it was to my parents. I mean, there was an active war going on in Belfast. Every day when I was in Belfast, you would hear, during the daytime, you would hear a machine gun fire or single shots, pop, 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 just off in the distance or close by. You could tell pretty much how far away they were by the sound. But then at night is when it got lit up, and nearly every night there would be an explosion you would hear somewhere off in the distance. and sometimes closer. And then the weekends would always get hot. The weekends would always be a lot of stuff happening. You didn't go out at night because of that, unless you had a specific appointment to go to, because it was not safe in Belfast. But during that time, when you go to the south of Ireland, because it is two different countries, Northern Ireland controlled by the British, the small little top right corner of it, northeast corner of it, but the larger part in the south is the Republic of Ireland, and that's an independent country. And it's all beautiful, all peaceful, all fun in the south, beautiful in the north as well. But the only time you knew there was a war going on in the north is if the IRA had a funeral for one of its so-called soldiers
Interesting.
in the battle in the north, and those were pretty remarkable to see as well. But they would have that. It was peaceful in the south, and I spent most of the time in the south, but a lot of time up north in Belfast during the Troubles. But no, I was never worried. I was never scared. It was sort of exciting to me to be there during what was really a pretty historical time when you think about it. There's the Irish Catholics and the British Protestants waging war against each other in Northern Ireland, as they had for years, for a century almost. You could argue, and it's nice that it's peaceful now. The neighborhoods are still pretty much separated, but it's nice that it's peaceful.
Huh. That's interesting. I've never been to Ireland. I kind of have, now it's, I don't even know. There's been so much immigration in some of these countries that I don't know if they're going to be what we think of, what we thought of in the past as those countries or not. I have no idea.
No, you're right about that. There's concerns about that in Ireland, that it's not that it's not as Irish as it used to be, and I noticed that when I went back in '07, and it hasn't gotten any. I will say, use the phrase better. It's since then, but it's what was also interesting that I noticed the change from being there in the '70s, mid '70s, and then going back in '07 with my wife, was a lot of the places had changed. The old chipper restaurants that I'd go to that you'd have that would serve fish and chips are turned into Pizza Huts and McDonald's and Burger Kings.
Oh,
That was
that's
a little disappointing to me. That I didn't
huh.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that would I could relate to that. We're going to go to a break again, but I want to keep talking to you during the break. My friends, this is
Okay.
Robert Sidell. I'm interviewing Ron Futrell, telling us some interesting stories. Like we were just talking about George Foreman, which is who just passed away this week. I didn't even know that. Um, so we'll be back in just a moment. We get back and some more great stories about things going on then and also now. So stay tuned. This is Robert Sidell, and we'll stay with you on Facebook too. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the world's a changing place. I mean, that's, I guess, the whole function, part of the story of the spiritual journey, isn't it? I don't know where you're at in that
Oh yeah.
journey, but I
No,
mean, it's there's change, right, in the world. It's just how we deal with that.
right. No, it. You got to go with the thing that's constant. And if you have a belief in the Savior, in my instance, or belief in God, that'll help you.
You know what? That is my belief too. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a constant. That is a constant. While everything around changes and shifts, there's one thing that you can look at and that's stable and there
No,
and forever.
that's a very very good point because I try. By the way, it's one of the things I try to tell my kids. I just say, you know what? You're going to have to sort out exactly how you connect to God, but somehow you need to find a connection because this is a changing world, and you need to have some kind of stability to hold on to as you move through life. And at least that's what it seems like to me after all these years.
Yes.
And for me, that's been the saving grace in my life. It really, really has been. And so it's kind of fun to hear you. I didn't even know that part about your history, but it still doesn't necessarily make everything simple, though, does it?
Although we were not given that promise that things would be simple or things would be fair, whatever that is, or that this earth life would be anything other than what it is. Just grind it out, do your best.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's a little hard to face sometimes, isn't it? But the reality is, in any given moment, we can't assume that what we think is fair is going to happen. You
Oh
know.
no, No, absolutely not. Um,
And,
that's one of the mottos my kids of the many mottos that I told my kids when they were younger was that one. They would come to me and go say, "Well, that's not fair. Something's not fair. Something happened to them that's not fair." And I would just look at them and say, and shake my head and say, who told you life was going to be fair? I never said it. Your mom's never said it. Who told you? If you look for fairness, you're going to be very disappointed in life. Just do your best. Go out there and make it fair. Make it as fair as you can for yourself and others. But but there's no guarantees that it's going to be. And if you'll always be disappointed if you think that that's the way it's supposed to be. Um, so
well, and part of the I guess part of the reason why is we're the ones deciding what we think is fair, right? And that's part of it.
well, that too. That's subjective. Yes.
But
No, you're right.
but nonetheless, somehow finding that center point, that anchor, makes a big difference, though, doesn't it?
Yes. Oh no, that makes all the difference in the world. I will say.
Interesting, because you and I have talked before, but we never actually talked about faith on that level. So it's nice to hear that you share that same
We usually
faith.
talk about workout stuff and Teslas.
Workout stuff and Teslas. I know. That's probably what we need to talk about when we come back from the break. Hold on. I think I'm coming back. Hmm. Okay, my friends, this is Robert Sidell. This is the Gateway Show on 6 to 7 p.m. live every week. And tonight I'm interviewing Ron Futrell, and he's just sharing kind of one of the ways he's tried to maintain some peace in his life is by keeping faith in God, and because there's so many things that don't seem fair sometimes. And speaking of unfair things, you and I were talking about the other day, all this stuff related to Tesla is pretty bizarre, isn't it? That's been happening in our society.
It is. It's almost unbelievable. If we weren't living through this time and seeing this, I wouldn't believe it if somebody would have told me about it. That you know that a few years after people had glorified Tesla and electric cars to be able to drive them and save the planet. I don't think they do that. But anyway, that was their intention. And then it's turned out because Elon Musk is now uh, they believe doing some evil things with our government, going around taking it out on Teslas, on the actual cars, and the power stations and the actual dealerships themselves. It's criminal, number one, but it's also just a bizarre scenario to think that it would come to that, and that people would think that's the way you protest. That's where you and protest somebody who's working hard, I believe, to try to reduce the size of government, which I would like to think would be something that everybody would get behind to say, let's cut back. We for years we've known our federal government has been pretty heavy, and that continuing on that track was going to be pretty dangerous for everybody, I believe. But then to then come up with this scenario that you're going to take it out on vehicles. Um, you could find a reason to hate every car company. I could give them to you. I could start with Volkswagen. Let's go there. You want to talk about, that they were first designed by Hitler. So I don't want to incite anybody, but I can tell you the history of Chevrolet. Oh, the history of Ford, Henry Ford. You look back into his history, and you'll want to go take out some F-150s. And so it's just it's ridiculous. I'm laughing at it. It's not funny, really, but it is ridiculous that this is the world that we're in today. And
I
I,
think that.
I don't I
Go
don't
ahead.
think it will I don't think it will be seen in a good light in the future, in the near future. It's not now.
I think it's going to be interesting to see, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's the sad part about it is, look, people have their right to have different points of view about things, but when they start just going out and attacking people, and defacing their cars and punching holes in their tires and things like that, I mean, that's that starts to create a destructive society, and I don't remember anything quite like that. And looking back, well, I guess did have some problems back during a few years ago, but it still wasn't the same way. And so now this is just out of the blue. He's become the villain to people. And like you say, a lot of it, I think, is kind of imaginary. Most of what he's been doing is just finding areas where there's like I mean, how can you fault a guy who finds millions and millions of people that are dead that are on Social Security rolls? I mean, I think everybody would be glad to hear, oh, well, those people shouldn't be on there. So there's a lot of things like that that he's been finding, and I think that's beneficial to everybody, not just one group of people.
Well, it could save Social Security, is what it could do. Is what that's the first thing you do, and then to find out they have such an antiquated system set up that it doesn't knock somebody off their rolls that's 300 years old. Okay, you had two issues with that. Is number one, they're using an old system that was so antiquated that it was doing that. People that were alive before the founding of the nation, supposedly. Now, whether they were still getting checks or not, then that's a second issue. But everything needs to get cleaned up. I don't think there's any better person to do it. First of all, he's doing it voluntarily. He's not getting paid anything for doing it. He's doing it on his own because he wants to help save the nation, and that's what he's doing. And he and it needs to be done. It's crazy that it hasn't been done sooner.
Well, we'll see how it all sorts itself out. I think human beings tend to be insecure, and so somehow people have decided he's threatening something to one group of people. I thought, whoops, you just turned. Oh, there, you're back up. It's
Yeah.
and I think that's the ultimate problem. They think he is threatening something that would protect them, and as a result, that's why people are feeling like they hate him or whatever.
Well, he
Whoops, you just disappeared. Hmm, that's strange. Are you still there? I may have to go. I may have to keep going on here for a couple of minutes till he reconnects or something. I just tell him real quickly what's going on here. That somehow he's gotten cut off. Hold on, my friends. Hold on. Just 1 second here. Can you hear me now again?
okay, I think I'm back.
See, we just had a miracle here. You disappeared and came back.
I'm
So
not sure what happened. Yes, that's part of my space flight thing
that's right.
back there.
But
No, and let's go here and also saving. I'm going to go here with Elon. It's the only guy who had a rocket ship capable of being able to fly up to the space station to be able to grab two astronauts who had been stranded up there. They were supposed to go for 8 days. They went almost for 9 months, and bring them back safely here. That was remarkable. That was absolutely remarkable. And the to put those side by side on the same day on newscasts, because that's what I do, news. So I watch a lot of news, and on the same day, you're seeing stories of people torching Teslas. You're seeing Elon Musk fly a rocket ship to the space station to save a couple of astronauts. And I'm saying that, are you kidding me? That picture right there, take a snapshot of that day last week when that happened, and that was absolutely remarkable, for a lot of reasons. Remarkable on a negative side that people were felt so inclined to want to destroy automobiles because he didn't like the guy, and that same guy is up saving astronauts with a rocket ship. Okay, so I'll take the guy with that's saving people with a rocket ship. I'll go there.
well, it's definitely interesting, and as a society, I think you'll agree with me. I mean, you've got kids, and I've got kids, and now I have a couple. Now I have a grandkid and a couple more grandkids on the way. But
What?
which is yeah, was very exciting. Believe me. It's funny about life as I've gotten older. I'm realizing something. Having grandkids kind of rejuvenates your experience of life. Do you find that too with yourself
Oh,
too?
are you kidding me? Come on, um, I love my kids. They know that, but boy, I love them even more that they brought grandkids, and that perpetuation of life means something. The high highs that I've had, and when I talk about and that's the value of life to me is high highs and low lows. And so I'm going to do a little preaching here, Robert, if you don't mind.
No, do
High
other.
highs, high highs and low lows, and having those human experiences that you have going through marriage. You go through that with your wife. You have the greatest, highest moments, and sometimes you have disappointing, tough moments together. Children, it's the same thing when they have success, when they do something remarkable. Grandkids, it just keeps cranking up the high highs. No, and the disappointment when you see the defeats and the anxiety they go through and the disappointments they go through that you feel. And to me, the human experience is about that, having a family and going through the expanded high highs and low lows. Now, do I think people that don't have that same experience, that live their life single, um, the range of experience is not the same in life, in my opinion. They're still going to have high highs and low lows. You're still going to have that human experience. But I think having family to share it with makes it so much better. But then you feel the pain so much greater, and you gotta appreciate that too in life. Appreciate the pain that you feel at times when things don't go as you planned it, when things don't go as you wanted it to go. We've got a child with special needs, and
Hmm.
going through his life has been, again, our high highs are expanded. He didn't walk till he was 10. Our other kids all walked at 10 months. When he walked at 10 years, that was a high high. That was a great moment. And then some of the
Wow.
difficult times going through learning, going through different things with Troy, and seeing his disabilities and having to deal with those have been pretty low times too. And coming to grips that he's not going to be like his brothers and his sister, that he's not going to have those same experiences in life. But that he's going to enrich all of our lives, because we believe the glory of God is manifest in him because of his special needs.
Well, that's a good
And
example of what
that,
you're talking about. That it's not always fair, right? I mean,
yeah, no, it's yeah. I could sit there all day. I could tell Troy stories all day long and say it's fair. Why do we have a child with severe special needs, and why does he have to go through this? We haven't. My wife and I have not spent a moment thinking about that. Just about how to go forward, how to build on this. Yeah, it was disappointing. It was tough. There was some times, but it brought us closer together. And there were difficult times dealing with his severe special
how, by the way,
needs.
how long have you been married?
47 years, I
Wow,
think. Hold
that's
on.
amazing.
She's not in the room. So let's see. So it'll be October. Yeah, it'll be 48. Yeah.
Wow. I've been a lawyer now for 48 years. I'll be married about 39 years this year.
Oh, bless
But
you.
that's amazing. So you must have been married back in the 70s.
We got married in 78.
Okay.
So
That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah, coming up it's going to be we're 2025. So coming up it'll be 47. Yeah.
Wow, that's a real accomplishment. A great and it's probably why no.
she's very patient with me. Um, that is an understatement, but she's been very patient with me over the years, and been there always by my side through all the going through career changes, moving different places. But when we came to Las Vegas 40 years ago, we fell in love with it. We wanted to be here. I didn't want to go anywhere else. We wanted to build our family here, and which we did.
It's where I met my wife too. We're going to go to a break again too. When we come back, we'll be in our last segment. So we'll be back in
Okay.
just a moment, a couple, 2 3 minutes. My friends, stick with us. So I'm talking to Ron Futrell. So Ron, it's interesting. So you've had a whole spectrum of life experience here over the last 48 years or so, haven't you?
I would think so. Yes. Yeah. It's
I'm
it's been,
sure with some of the
been a
different
fun one.
characters you've met, you could probably write a movie about that yourself.
Oh, it's been pretty interesting seeing covering some of the things I've done sports wise has been great. We've seen Vegas go from the transition of being rebel basketball city and major fights to rebel basketball being just an afterthought now. I hope they get back to where they were at some point. Um, Fights are not as big as they used to be. Um, to now, by the way, we got the Raiders, got the Knights, got baseball coming, and the NBA will be here before too long. So that's sort of interesting to see that transition.
Huh. No, it's interesting to think about that. All those different changes that have happened along. By the way, one of my big lessons of life, when I first came here, Tarkanian was the coach, and nobody, it was Rebel fever. Everybody was
Yeah.
obsessed with the Rebels. And it was a big, huge lesson in my life. And yet somehow, without trying to point the finger of who was the cause of this, all I know is that basically they pushed out Tarkanian. At least that's my
Oh,
interpretation of it.
I could tell you who was at fault with it. It was Bob Maxson, the president of the university. But oh no, you don't have another 6 hours on this show, so you don't want to get me talking on that.
Well, what's weird, what's weird about that? I think to myself, I've always wondered about things like that. Here you had a guy that's such a winner, was doing so much for the town, and they push him out. And why? Because it's hard to get somebody back again like that, and they really haven't either, have they?
Well, they haven't 35 years. They've been in limbo. Lon Kruger went to one Sweet 16 in 07, 08, around that time. But why? Answer your question. Why? I think it's they wanted to control, as you know, the most powerful thing in this community at that time was Rebel basketball, and the university wanted to control it. When I say the university, Bob Maxson wanted to control it, and a handful of who I will call the elitists here in town wanted to control their program, that program, and to do so, they had to get it away from Jerry Tarkanian because he controlled it. Well, he built it; it was his.
I remember him coming to.
It was the
I
community.
remember him coming to my Kiwanis Cub, and looking around. And he says, if they want it back, guess what? It'll be back small again. He goes,
Yeah.
he goes, and he was right, and that's the sad part about it. But
Mark was absolutely right. He would tell us in the media and press conferences. He would say, "You guys might miss going to that NCAA tournament thing every year." And a few of the media people would look around each other and roll their eyes and go, "Oh no, it's going to stay. It will keep going. It'll be great, just as good."
okay, we're coming back to the radio right now. Okay, my friends, we're welcoming you back to the Gateway Show. I've been talking to Ron Futrell. A lot of interesting, gosh, the stories really could go on and on and on. We were just talking a little bit about Tarkanian and the days of Rebel Fever. That was kind of when I first showed up in town, and I was always sort of surprised that somehow they lost that momentum because it was an exciting thing. But that doesn't mean there haven't been other good things, but it's just kind of a lesson for me to remember.
Yeah, they got it stolen. They got it. The program was stolen from the community by the president of the university, Robert Maxson, and he destroyed it. He got rid of Tark, killed it, and the community pays the price. Ultimately, Tark paid the price. His players paid the price, and the community paid the price. But they wanted to control the most important, most valuable, most special thing in Las Vegas to this community at that time was Rebel basketball. They wanted to control it. A handful of the elites in town, and they blew it up. They killed the goose. Okay, and it's not been the same since. I hope someday it is. I know people will say get over it. I'm over it. It's not that issue. But history, you need to know your history so that you don't repeat it. The bad things.
That's one of mine, by the way. I try to remember that too. And even for me, I'm slow to throw out a winning proposition because you never know if you're going to run into that same winning proposition again. You know what I'm saying? Is it funny?
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. If you're going to get rid of a quarterback or a coach or a whatever, any position on the field, you better have a plan for an upgrade. Okay, UNLV obviously could not have upgraded from Tark. They hired Rolly Massimino, and it was a severe downgrade in so many ways. On the court, off the court, in the community, all over the place. But yeah, if you're getting rid of Raiders, going through their quarterback situation, I have said with Derek Carr when they got rid of Derek Carr, okay, what's your plan? You have a better quarterback. You have somebody that is an improvement. They haven't found somebody that's an improvement to Derek Carr. Maybe Geno Smith is the new guy coming in this year for the Raiders. He's not a new guy. He's been around for a while, but he's new for the Raiders. So we'll see what happens there.
I guess that's kind of sports in general, isn't it? But I'm sure, and that's really been your biggest focus of sports, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, that's what I've done here for 40 years plus in Las Vegas is covering sports, doing sports, enjoying sports. It's been a playground for me. I feel so blessed, fortunate to have had a career here in town. If it ends tomorrow, I'll still smile. I don't want it to, but I'll still smile. I'd like to be around. The Athletics are coming to town in 3 years. Sort of be fun to cover them. I love baseball when they come here. That baseball season begins later this week. NBA will not be far behind. It'll be coming here. Seattle and Las Vegas will get expansion franchises. So all that being said, it's looking forward to the future. Looks good. It's fun to cover the Knights. They keep winning. The Raiders. I love covering the NFL. They got to step it up with their new coach, Pete Carroll. See what they can do there.
Well, you know what? all it really it is kind of interesting in this whole conversation. Actually, my friend, one of Ernie, is supposed to try to call in, but something it may work in a few seconds or it may not. We'll soon find out. But I want you to know just what you've been talking about. Even you're talking about some of these just general spiritual principles about trying to make the most. Really, you're really just saying make the most of what you can of situations, right? Isn't that mainly the main lesson?
Well, and that there are no guarantees in life. We did not come to this earth life with a promise that we were going to have guaranteed success. That there were going to be failures along the way. I mean, the story of Adam and Eve is an important one to know, whether you believe it actually happened or whether you believe it's just a story. Either way, it's an important one to know of that story in our lives and how it relates to who we are, what we do. Is that we now have agency to be able to choose what we can do, what we want to do with our lives, and how we use that agency determines so much about who we are. Really, it just does, and that's things that can lead to tremendous success, but that we weren't guaranteed it. We came down without a guarantee of anything in life. You hope you have good parents that can help and raise you. I did. I hope to my kids that they've got good parents. I know my kids are great parents to their kids, and you just hope that carries on and moves on, and you perpetuate that. There is value in that. That in fact, there is the most value in that. More than anything, any other success you do with your career and your life, there's no other success that compensates for failure in the home. I'm stealing that quote from a wise man, David O. McKay, and I've lived that as my life, and I feel I've had success outside the house, but it's more important for me to have that success in my home.
And I think that's, we all have to focus on the priorities for our lives. I mean, I don't know what else we can really do. We have to decide what's really important to us. And like you said, there's some reversals. We've all had them. I've had them too. And but you can't give up, can you? That's the main thing is you can't give up.
No, I got fired from a TV station here in town, and a few years later went to another one, and it was a pretty controversial firing. It got front page headlines, and so it went through. It was a tough time. It was not an easy time going through it. It didn't have to be that way, but it was, and there were things out of my control, things that I could argue weren't fair. But I didn't go there. I didn't say, okay, that's not fair, and then sit in the corner and weep. You go out, you hit it again, you hit it harder, and that experience, you through all the radio experiences you've had in town here, all the radio shows, all the the career that you've had, not only attorney wise, but in on air and radio. It's it's
I
it's a
know
roller coaster.
it's kind of
It's a
funny.
roller
It is kind of funny because I've been on the radio a long time now, which seems hard to
Yeah,
believe, really.
no, yes.
It's what it's been a nice experience for me. I think the main benefit almost really at this point for me is like you hearing what you have to say, learn from you, and a lot of times you get a chance to learn from somebody about things you would have never guessed. Oh, good. My friend is gonna. Oh, there he is. Hey, we have just enough time for him
Okay.
to say his closing prayer. Hey, Ernie, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Hi, Robert. Yes, I can hear you.
Share your prayer with us tonight. Your closing prayer.
Oh, thank you, Robert. All right. The prayer is about there's always a better life. Lord, thank you for giving us this blessed day and this adventurous life journey. We give gratitude for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. Guide us to be in awareness of your presence and grace within us for better life. We thank you for keeping us in good health, experiencing happiness. We are grateful for the resources that surround us to use it for our physical, emotional, spiritual well being, to be happy, joyful, compassionate, and experiencing inner contentment. Lord, guide us to share and be a testimony to the people we come across on expressing our appreciation for our well being and how we can be of service to others in times of their shortcomings. We give our gratitude and to acknowledge your blessings of prosperity and happiness for a better life upon us, creating heaven on earth. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
And Ernie, by the way, he doesn't look like it, but he's actually aren't you're 79 years old now, aren't you, Ernie?
Yes, I'm 79.
Bless you. Thank you for that prayer.
And he does these beautiful
Thank you.
prayers.
Thank you.
He was sponsored over here from India. His father was sponsored over as a young man from India, right? And then you
Yes,
came over. Then your dad brought you over.
that's right. Yes,
If
that's
you ever
right,
heard
Robert.
some of his stories from India, believe me, you'd realize really how blessed we are. But well, and he always does these very beautiful prayers for us every night. We often have another woman that joins us too, but tonight she was performing a wedding, so she couldn't be with us tonight. Well, listen, I'll tell you what. I'm so glad you were able to get through, Ernie. Sorry for any mistakes I
Thank
made
you.
or anything in connecting you. But so two different things that I want to say, Ron. I really want to thank you, and I really especially am glad you did share some of your spiritual thoughts too. I think that was
Thank
very
you.
valuable. They were as important as anything else we talked about, and maybe more important.
I
And
would say more important. Thank you.
then, actually, for me too, I actually think that. And then and Ernie, like I said, he's been an ordained minister for a long time also, and so he always does beautiful prayers for us too every week. So I want to thank both of you for spending your time on the show here tonight, and just invite you to everybody else listening out there. Remember, God is real, miracles are real, and the best is yet to come. Let's just trust in the beautiful future and keep our anchor based on God in everything that we do. So thank you both. Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Ernie. And I'll be back next week, folks, with another great interview. But thank you so much, Ron, for taking your time with us tonight.
Thank you, Robert. My pleasure, Ernie. Thank you for that prayer. Great
Thank
being
you
with
very
you.
much, Ron. Wonderful to meet you.
All right. God
Likewise.
bless you both. You guys take care of yourselves.
Okay. Bye,
Okay.
Robert.
Okay. Bye bye.